Alrighty, and we're recording. So tonight's guest is Aqil Qadir of Citizen Safety Academy. Ak, thanks a bunch for coming on today, man.
I could do no less, brother. Come on, you know how we go. We, like we saying it back in the we cling and hang like wet draws, man. We good.
That's so awesome. So, man, to introduce you, Dad Gum, you're doing a lot of great things right now. So, creator and founder of Citizen Safety Academy, chief instructor. You're also, I think you are, you teach a lot of NRA and USCCA instructor certification courses. Doing a lot of work with the National African American Gun Association. Doing a lot of work with Rangemaster. You're teaching Rangemaster courses and giving Rangemaster certificates. You're the chief RSO at the Rangemaster Tactical Conference. Did I leave anything out?
That's enough.
That's a whole lot, man.
I know what you left out. I'm a lifetime student. I'm a senior student, so
That's incredible.
that's the
Yeah.
most important.
So, um, there's a there's a meaning behind Citizen Safety Academy,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that name means to you?
Yeah. The Did some research on the background of my family and found out that I hired a genealogist actually. It's a young lady who works on my genealogy tree, and she's been able to trace my family back to the early 1800s here. Well, actually, some genes, our genes have been here in some form, fashion since the early 1800s, and I think we're working on taking it back into the 1700s. And as I reflected on it, I was born in the late 60s, 1969, and it hit me that sitting there talking to my granddad when he was in hospice, he was about to pass, and we were just talking. And he was born in Louisville, Georgia, and he left the South to move to Buffalo, New York, where I was born and raised. And I asked him why he left, and he said Jim Crow. And he was a World War II veteran. He was one of the first Black World War II veterans given a 100% disability because he was a hero. And he had done some pretty marvelous things over there, fighting overseas, fighting against racism, and only to come home and have to leave his hometown for that very thing. And so it became clear to me that, thinking about it, with the Civil Rights Bill of 1965, and I was born just a few years later, I am the first man in my line um, that has full citizenship rights, was born with full citizenship rights throughout the United States of America. One of the reasons why my granddad left, he was a gun guy. One of the reasons why he left was, he said, the oppression, and and not being able to vote and stuff like that. So I now that we have this, I sometimes want to make sure that people. I mean, I'm dedicated to making sure that me and all Americans retain those citizenship rights. Because if you're not careful, they can go away. We as a people know what that's like to have them not be there, because we weren't always chattel slaves. I mean, that we went from being indentured servants like everybody else to chattel slavery. And my study of history, and I'm still studying, shows that one of the first things they did to do that was restrict us from weapons. Because it is hard to enslave and oppress people who have an ability to defend themselves and create their own ways and self-determination. And so that's what I'm dedicated to. That's what I'm passionate about. And oppression comes in many ways. It's not just government oppression, because I mean, slavery in America would not have been possible without the support of the United States government. That's just the truth. um, but also oppression of the criminal element, which is something that my dad taught me. He was a gun guy, and when it wasn't, in a place that it wasn't easy to do, at a time that it wasn't easy to do given his skin color, and and there was a lot that he went through to be able to introduce me to that, and so uh, that's what I'm dedicated to. I had great parents, and so I don't think that I have the right to do anything but continue that good that they started.
When I talk to my family and my friends about, Second Amendment rights, there's this undertone that it wasn't particularly written for us. And they still kind of feel that today, almost like it's wrong for them. Like they feel in their heart of hearts that it's wrong for them to own firearms and that they shouldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, that was, you can't do something for 400 years and then it goes away in 40. It takes a while, and culturally speaking, we have a surreptitious gun culture. If your dad and your granddad, weren't allowed to really have firearms like that, or they felt like they couldn't, or they were taught that when they were young, then you're going to, that's the house you're raised in. Now, hopefully we're changing that culture, but it's going to take time. You can't do, like I said, you can't do it for 400 years and then expect it to just go away. So when people ask me, for example, I'll get, really well-meaning, gun stores or gun people will go to me, hey, Aqil, how do I get, more African-Americans into my classes or into my, and the first thing I tell them is, well, do you have African-Americans in your marketing? Because if you don't, they're not going to come because they're not sure if they're welcome. And where did you and I get that from? When I say that, you nod your head because you know that feeling. You know what I'm saying? That we have to check neighborhoods. You know what I'm saying? We have to go places and see, okay. And things are changing, for the better. And I've seen this in my lifetime, but, it hasn't always been that way. And I remember, as a young man, even trying to buy a home in Buffalo, that there was places that I wasn't comfortable buying a home, because I wasn't sure that, places that I didn't want my kids to go to. I mean, heck, when I was in the Buffalo Police Academy, all of the suburbs around the city of Buffalo, none of them had one Black police officer, not one of them.
Wow.
And so, there's a lot of, and they're well-meaning people. And but sometimes, like I said, if things have been away for a certain period of time, for a long period of time, it just takes some time for things to change. Generations often change. So
Yeah. So I think that there's probably some media influences in there as well, not just towards us, but towards, gun shops and gun ranges and stuff like that. I remember a lot of times when I walked into a gun range and I didn't always dress with polos,
right,
It's a lot of influence from John Hearn there. But nowadays I try not to leave the house without a collared shirt. But
right.
but I used, back in the day when, I would dress a little bit more like rugged, then I get treated that way.
Right.
I walk into a gun range and people treat me like I was gonna handle the gun like Lil Wayne would handle a gun.
Right. Right.
So I don't know, it
And
just kind of pushes me a little bit.
yeah, and some of that is, I mean, I've been training for a long time. I went to my first open enrollment class in, I think, 1998 or 1999. And I remember when I went up to the line to shoot a drill, everybody had to shoot a drill at one point. It was on some steel, and I remember watching everything get quiet. Feeling like everything, it wasn't something I meant to notice, but I just noticed that all of a sudden everybody was kind of watching what I did, And so, I've tried to make a point since then to dress how I dress, and at the same time, challenge people's stereotypes or their schemas about what and who and what people look like and what they are, and hopefully make everybody more comfortable, but you and I both know what that's like, And a point, something just popped in my mind. A point you said, I don't believe the Second Amendment was written with us in mind. The Second Amendment didn't apply to us until the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, until after the Civil War. So there's a reason, again, why that is. And, but, fortunately, John Farnham just joined, the National African American Gun Association. He's the guy.
That's so incredible.
Yeah, and he's the guy who says, hey, the Second Amendment is not going to be, saved on or preserved on the backs of aging white men, and that's true. I mean, we have to see what's coming in the future, and we have to prepare for it. And if we don't, and me and Tiff, like, our brought into the 2A tent, that's what it's about, is letting guys know, hey, reminding guys, we're on the island and we need to pull more people on. And so as opposed to going 40 or even 50% to meet people, we need to go 60%. And so I consider you and I, for example, ambassadors to this. I had the greatest compliment one of the greatest compliments a man ever paid me. Shout out to Marcus Ziegler at Ziegler Defense. And we did the he was nice enough to host us. The dude came to our first class and then he hosted us at his second class. I got mad love for that dude. And he was like, man, Aqil, I wasn't sure that I could even go to a range master class until I saw you and Tiff there. And that's what I want to do. You know what I'm saying? He's online. Because I remember, I go back to getting online with firearm things since Rec Guns, man. That's how far back I go, you know, pull bulletin boards and stuff like that. I've been into it for a long time, man. So, and I know what it's like, man, to have looked at a class picture on a website and deliberately zoomed it out so I could see if there was any black people in there, man. You know, because like I said, you don't know, you know, and or going to classes and many classes that I've been where I'm the only brother there, you know what I'm saying? You know, or in a class where Ken Hackathorn, God, I love Ken Hackathorn, walked up to me and said, hey, brother, you know, how can I get more black people in my classes, man? You know what I'm saying? He said, why don't I see more of you guys? You know, when I look on the news, it's happening in your neighborhoods. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, why don't I see more of you in my classes? And I'm going, man, Ken, we could have a long talk over, can't say it right here. It's a lot to talk about. I've been thinking about it. But him saying that actually got me thinking and made me actually start to go research as opposed to just giving them anecdotal stuff that I thought off the top of my head. I said, man, let me go actually find out why.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure that out as well. It's not a simple answer, you know.
No,
it's going to be complex.
Simple answers don't work, man. You know, they're not simple problems, you know. So, you know, we do the best we can, and I'm happy. I am happy and fortunate that I am on the positive side. Things are getting better, and so I feel like it's my duty to take advantage of what we got going on now to further the culture.
I think so too. Absolutely.
Because the gun culture is a wonderful culture, man. I mean, it's hard to explain to people who don't, and they see the conservative trappings around it, and they get a little nervous about it. And I tell them, yeah, you're going to run into a couple goofballs like you would anywhere, but by and large, man, the gun culture is a wonderfully welcoming community, and I wish more. I found it out when I went down in 1999 to TDI, and John Benner was wonderfully gracious to me and let me come back as an adjunct instructor and stay under his house for, you know, when I would do that. And when I left, my friends thought I was crazy. I tell the story, it's true. I mean, Ice-T, Surviving the Game movie was out, you know, so I'm going down here. My friends are like, man, you're going where to do what with who? Are you crazy? You know, and you know, they didn't think they was gonna see me ever again, you know. And instead, I came back going, hey, y'all gotta come back. I had a ball, you know what I'm saying? And it took like 1 or 2 trips before one of my best friend actually trusted me enough to come back with me, and then he had a ball, you know what I'm saying? So,
oh man,
it's that serious.
That's awesome. That's always great. It feels great to, like, you know, bring friends. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's always excellent. So here in Memphis, the National African American Gun Association, the Memphis chapter, like we've been really tight. In fact, like my first guest on here was Howie Williams, and he's the president.
Yeah,
So
man, Howie. Peace to Howie.
yeah, and you know, we've been doing a lot to, you know, just kind of welcome folks in and be like, hey, look, you're not alone, okay? And if you're looking for good places to learn and to be more proficient, then we could point you in the right direction, definitely. So, let's jump over just a little bit to, and I'm sure we'll probably get back to this topic here in a little while, but it feels like a good place to segue over to gateway instruction. You and Tiffany Johnson have just developed a curriculum called Gateway Instruction. Like, is this the Gateway? What's the title of it again? The Gateway Instruction
It's Gateway
Development
Instructor
Course?
Certification course. We actually took it from a development course and changed it to a certification course because people kept asking us, will I be certified? And I know it's not important to us, but it's important to some people, you know. And so we thought about it because we don't think that who are we to certify anybody in anything? That's how me and Tiff approached it. But looking at the way Tom was doing it, we said, well, we're not giving them a curriculum per se or anything like that, but we are just basically kind of vetting them and giving them some, putting them in the right direction, because gateway instruction is the largest part of our industry, and it is also the most important by far part of our industry. And unfortunately, it's also one of the most neglected. And Kathy Jackson changed my thinking on that when she penned, I can't remember if she told me that or if she wrote it down, but but she's also rich. She has written it down that the best instructors should teach the new people. And so me and Tiff were sitting there complaining one day about how bad, you know, a lot of the first instructors, a lot of people have are. And then I said, well, of course, really, we were complaining about the NRA, the NRA's basic, of course, of which I had been an instructor for them since 1992. And but I had kind of gotten away from it and was like, it's the NRA, you know, I'm too good for that type of stuff. Then me and Tiff realized that there's a lot of people coming through that door, whether we do anything about it or not. So as opposed to sitting around complaining about it, hey, let's go do something about it. So we both became training counselors, and then that's funny, as I went back and became a training counselor, I began to realize that the NRA's curriculum and methodology is not bad. It's really good. It's not being used properly by people. And so we went back, and if you look at it for what it really is, it's actually solid. And so we went back and decided to go back and start doing it. So now in fact, we got one this weekend. We do about 3 or 4 times a year. We do a, you know, NRA basic pistol instructor course, basic pistol course and instructor course together. And so that we can kind of set guys on the right path so that they are, you know, giving out the right information in the right way. And what's the part that sometimes gets left out is the way. You know, one of my best slide and, you know, Tiff's PowerPoint decks, everybody knows, our legend, and the best slide, and it came from her. She created this slide that says, you know, it has Maya Angelou on there, which is wonderful. And then it has her quote that people won't remember what you said. They won't remember what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel. And we have to remind guys that in the beginning classes, it's all about the feels, and remind guys, especially like guys like you and I, that they aren't you. And we forget sometimes where we started, you know. And I laugh, but the first gun I bought up for myself when I turned 21 and got my New York State permit was a Taurus, you know, with gold trigger and pearl grips.
Had to bling it out.
Yeah, I love that thing, man. Yeah, you know, it's important to be sexy. You know what I'm saying? It's you know what I mean? So it's like, how do I laugh? You know, how do I laugh at those people? You know, and hopefully they grow. Sometimes they don't, but you know, another point that John Farnham said, you know, when somebody asked him about those type of guns in classes was, you know, every time you see one, you know, thank God that we have the choice in this country to even buy a crappy gun, you know what I'm saying, or to buy a good gun, you know, because there's places that may be the only option you got, you know. So it's just reminding guys, you know, trying to do the best. So we position ourselves at the door to the NRA as best we can, and we position ourselves at the door to USCCA for the same reason, you know. And then when NAGA contacted us and asked us to help them out, you know, we couldn't say no. You know, what do you do? Hey, you know, it's bigger than us. It really is.
Yeah. So that's a gap in my own knowledge that I have to acknowledge. I'm really, really good at teaching shooters that already have some kind of basis. You know, like a lot of my skill set leans heavily towards analysis and diagnostics, but I really need help in just gateway instruction. You know, that's really just where I need help.
It's funny because when we started doing it and we got into it, me and Tiff it became clear. There was a national instructor that I saw in the video one time, and he said basically he hated teaching newbies. And, you know, it struck me for a while, and, you know, I didn't let it bother me, you know, because I understand, hey, if if he doesn't like him, he doesn't like teaching them. But then after doing it for a while, me and Tiff realized that reason why a lot of guys don't like doing this because it's hard. It's not easy. You know what I'm saying? You know, I mean, there's so much that we do that we've pushed over into our subconscious, you know, and if you really think about what goes into all those little movements or all those little techniques and everything of teaching somebody something that is completely unnatural. You know, shooting is not, you know, shooting is, what do we say? Shooting is simple, but it's not easy. And the reason it's not easy is because you're fighting, you know, natural tendencies. And so we got to get somebody to do something that's completely unnatural. Hold some squirmy, you know, firecracker 2 feet from their face, you know, and now on top of that, this thing that they're holding on, everything that they've seen in their life up to this point says that this thing is going to kill them and everybody around. I mean, just
Yeah.
think about what it takes to stand on a line next to a bunch of people with guns and just assume that none of them are going to point it at you. Those things we take for granted. I mean, we take a lot for granted, and we've forgotten a lot, and we've gotten deep into this culture, and sometimes we forget what it's like to be new. And so that's why it's good to surround yourself with people like Tiff, who remembers distinctly what it was like walking into Rangemaster, terrified in the year 2000. And bless the stars and the heavens that she walked in there and ran into Tom Givens, and happens to be the kind of person that likes a salty dog like him. You know what I'm saying? And because imagine had she walked in there and got somebody else and walked out, because she walked into the place looking for arguments against, to support gun control. She hated guns, and now look where she is now. And so we need more of that.
I think that's one thing that doesn't get acknowledged enough. Just the sheer amount of courage that it takes for some of these folks to even walk into a class,
Right.
like
Right.
for us, we take it for granted because, like you in law enforcement, me in the military, we come from an environment where it's expected for us to train,
Right.
or
Right.
it's expected for us to at least like get certifications and whatnot.
Right.
But, for these folks, like there's no law in a lot of places, I would say that there's no law telling them that they have to take any classes, even the permit class,
Right.
like here in Tennessee, it's permitless carry.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
just the fact that they decided to themselves, they had the emotional maturity to say, you know what, there's probably some things about this thing that I should really know, and I should get some training. And, to poo-poo on that, I
Right.
don't know, man.
Right.
It
To give
seems
them a
like it's
hard
counterproductive.
time. Right. Or to laugh at their gun, or to give them a hard time and all this, especially now in the age of permitless carry. Anybody who comes to my handgun carry permit class, because you know, we do a lot of development of gateway instructors, but we also teach a lot of gateway classes. So we keep that muscle flexed and learn and keep and develop the craft and get better at it. Um, but anytime these guys now, since permitless carry hit Tennessee, when people show up in my classes, I congratulate them. I thank them, for coming and doing something that a whole thousands of people aren't doing. Tennessee also has a concealed carry only permit that all they have to do is take an hour and a half online class to get. And yet you would
Mhm.
still get people who would come out and sit 8 hours with you. First thing I do off the back is thank them, and I ask them why they did it. And usually it's the kind of people that go, hey, yeah, I think I need to know a little something about this thing. And the worst thing that we can do is have somebody cross that mountain, that river, that divide to come to us, and then we are haughty with them. It reminds me of something, Craig Douglas said, are you, something I paraphrase, are you, trying to do something, or are you trying to be somebody? Are you trying to be something? And so when we get guys in our class, we try to, work a lot of that out of them. And sometimes we're good and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we had one guy who took our class, and then afterward he sent, because we asked for an evaluation from everybody, even if they tear us apart. And he kind of did. And he said, basically, if I got to do all of this, you know, essentially touchy feely stuff, then I don't want to teach. And me and Tiff were first, we were hurt. And then we thought about it. We were like, no, that's exactly what we want to happen. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if we can, dissuade somebody like that, then, and then maybe he needs to teach, intermediate and advanced students where you can kind of do that kind of thing, but we have to remember, anybody that we turn away from the Second Amendment and turn away from gun culture, man, hurts us in the long run, hurts us, and it hurts our kids and our grandkids.
Yeah, that's really tough. Yeah, I think it's gonna continue to be an uphill battle, but I see more and more people getting into it. And I think there's a lot of folks out there that are just kind of trying to figure out exactly what they can do to help.
Right.
So, so I'll ask some questions. Okay.
Great.
Let's see. So, like, of course, as far as like helping to protect our Second Amendment rights, I think the easy answer is to join an organization. Like join. I mean, dare I say it? Join the NRA. But there's probably, I'm not going to say better choices. There's more variety, like the National African American Gun Association. There's the Firearms Policy Coalition. There's Gun Owners of America. But is there anything else? Like, what besides just paying money to somebody? Is there anything else we can do to get more involved?
Be a nice person and take people out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, take people shooting. Be approachable. Be the kind of person that that people feel like they can come to you. And all politics is local. And ultimately in the end. And so Wes, you can do your part is why I look at everybody who comes out, every scared person who hates guns or whatever, is not sure about guns, or is more is afraid of guns. I feel like it is my job to try to assuage their fears some and try to turn them to our side. I actively seek to do that. So there's joining organizations, which I think is exactly what you should do, just like you said. And there's plenty of them. Join them all. Heck, you know what I'm saying? I'll support them all. And then, do your own grassroots work that you can, even if it's, putting out good videos on YouTube if you can. I mean, if you would probably get them taken, they probably get taken down now, but you know what I'm saying? Whatever you can do, to put the good word out and to look like one thing I try to, we try to drive home to gateway instructors is sometimes they think that they mean well. And so they go, okay, I need to wear my skill on me. I need to look like I know what I'm doing. So I'm all tactical out. And what they don't realize is that sometimes they don't realize that to the average person, we're scary. And so what I try to do is be relatable and look like everybody. So when I start talking about, I'm a basic class, I'm not going to talk about, I'm certified in this, and I'm range master this and range master staff and blah 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 blah. And I got this certification. You know what I tell them? I'm a granddad. Who just this morning had to take my two grandsons to school this morning. And one of them threw water up against the back of my head. And that's yeah, that's what most people can relate to. And if they can relate to you, then hey, they can see themselves in you. Then it's like, okay, then that guy, he's a normal guy and he can do that. Down to little things like when we do basic classes, I want my guns as stock and to look like theirs, as opposed to doing super fast demos with my whiz bang 3000, with the extended comp and special trigger and big old optic on top. I'll grab one of their firearms, you know what I'm saying? But when I'm in basic classes, I want to look and be relatable as possible. So that's one of the things I think that we can do, is to spread this thing, is to be regular, as Pat Rogers said, regular earth people, or at least be able to do it and act that way as a tactic. We're tactical people. We should understand, all right? I understand how you feel about it, but how about a nice tactic where we can, if you use good tactics, you get an advantage and you can win, so, let's go out there and look like regular people and be nice and let all your gun knowledge make you a nice person instead of full of hubris. It should humble you. I mean, the more I learn about this stuff and the more I do it, the more humble I am. I become, I hope, if that's not the case, then please, I give anybody permission to check me on that.
One thing I found about going to all these like gun schools and classes and stuff is the more I learn about guns, the more I end up taking away about just people, because like, yeah, there's schools that teach you how to shoot guns better. And then there's schools that teach you how to survive violent encounters better. So that's pretty interesting. Um, so as far as that goes, like as far as like when it comes down to gateway instruction, like what would you consider a gateway student? Are we talking about like a person that's their very first time touching a gun is with you today, or maybe just someone that recently had training?
Both.
Uh,
It depends on where they are, what their skill levels are, what their exposure is, and how much they've done it. So we're talking about somebody who may not have ever even touched a gun. And for our class, you don't have to show up with anything. You know what I'm saying? We got a class called How to Shoot a Handgun that tends to, sell. We keep the class small, and they show up and they don't have to bring anything but a positive attitude. That's it. All the way up to people who have touched a gun, but it was 20 years ago. Somebody may have touched a gun last week and had piss poor instruction. Not only that, but if you know anything about this and adult learning theory and andragogy and all that stuff that I'm learning, as I did with Tom and Tiff and people like that, is that how much do people retain after a class? after, I one of the things we remind these gateway instructors is the first class is a field trip. They're not going to walk away. We acknowledge, we believe, as you and I, tactical shooters, the guys who are into this thing, gun guys, instructors, that one class is not going to make. One of the first things I tell people is, becoming a responsibly armed American is a process and not a class. Okay, which means this class today, guys, is a field trip. You know what I'm saying? So what am I selling in that class? I'm selling dopamine. I'm selling dope. I want them to feel better. I want them to enjoy themselves so that they do what? You know what? Even if it's 6 months or a year later, they go, I had a good time at that class. I'm going to go back and learn more about that kind of stuff. That's how we do it. And so it doesn't matter where they are. I've had people come to us and go, they were with some other instructor who was, you got to kill. And I'm like, there's a place for that. But, when they first walk in the door, you got to meet people where they are. Remember, the whole concept behind this is that we're behind the 8 ball, right? You know what I'm saying? So what do we need to do to get from behind it? If we're the majority, then we don't have to worry about it, more or less. That, hey, you need us more than we need you. But at this point now, us Second Amendment people, we're in a defensive posture. That's just the truth about it. And so we need to start, being more tactical in that regard. So gateway student is anybody who, needs basic level or basic understanding of firearm safety and firearm safety nomenclature, shooting, marksmanship, shooting mechanics, all that type of stuff. Anything that's baseline is I consider a gateway student. So a gateway student would be all the way up to, intermediate, honestly. Well, no, basic is a little different. Once they come through the gateway, we want to be gateway people, not gatekeepers. That's Tiff's thing. You know what I'm saying? So once they get in, and then hopefully maybe they start taking other classes and they're enjoying themselves, then maybe they're no longer a gateway student. But good question. I hadn't really thought about that one before. But said, yeah, the difference between a gateway and maybe a basic student.
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of, because we may think of some folks as gateway students or gateway instructors, and then it just kind of, I don't know, is that really gateway instruction? So they're just interesting to kind of think about, and I don't know, maybe it kind of helps to, I don't know, better to define the target audience, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're the on ramp. Once they get on the highway and they decide they're on, then they're no longer gateway. But we're the on ramp, meaning it's not just, it's really trying to get them to become even a small part of the gun culture. That's the goal, ultimately, is for them to become part of the gun culture. Now, they may or may not do that, but at least what we can do is make sure that they have a welcoming presence when they decide to stick their head in the door. That's all. So, we walk out and say, hey, how you doing? Well, what do you think about? Think about coming in here. Let me make it easy for you. Let me make you have a good time. How can I make you comfortable? That kind of thing. Okay. And hopefully they take it from there. And if we've given them a positive experience, if they run into negative experiences, hopefully that positive experience will buffer them in those times. Me and you have always run into people that we didn't have liked or didn't get along with in the industry, or had a bad instructor or something like that. But you weigh that against, the good times that you've had and the fun people that you've met and the people who were nice to you, and it keeps you going, and so hopefully we can give them something like that, because everybody kind of remembers their first teacher, just like you kind of remember your kindergarten teacher, right? So you kind of, you kind of remember your first teacher and if nothing else, how they made you feel. Like I can remember, Miss Ripchinsky, God bless Miss Ripchinsky, wherever she is out there, and actually my favorite teacher ever, and I'm a guy with a college degree, is Miss Santiago, who was my 5th grade teacher. I think she was my 5th or 6th grade teacher, but in fact, she's in Atlanta, and we actually caught up again later on. In fact, I got to call her. I need to get in touch with her. But yeah, I mean, people, you impact people early in the process, and you can have a greater impact than even, as they go down the line or as they get into the culture.
Yeah. Sometimes I get frustrated by, like, this is pure confession time. Okay. Sometimes I get frustrated when I teach permit classes and introductory classes, because it's very, very seldom that we ever see those guys ever again.
Right.
And, like we'll have a permit class of, I don't know, let's call it like 15 students.
Right.
And I might see maybe one or two of those guys again. Like not even for a class, just to come back in to buy ammo,
Right.
just to come in to practice.
Right.
And, I always kind of wondered, like, I even asked some of these folks, like at the end of class, hey, are we going to see you again? What are you signed up for next? Like are you going to keep in touch with us or, whatever else have you? And they swear up and down, yeah, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back. And they never come back. So it's interesting. Um, is it something that we're doing, or is it something that is a human phenomenon, or like why aren't people coming back to class?
I think it's human nature. I mean, think about it. I'm former law enforcement. We know that most of the guys who are cops out there, the gun is like the radio. They could care less about it. A lot of the guys that I work with in Buffalo Police Department, for example, and this was, and I'm talking about people I worked with in a pretty busy house. I'm talking about, we would, 20, 30 calls a night. And a lot of these guys didn't carry a gun off duty. Yeah. I mean, if you think about what it takes to think, hey, all right, most people just play the odds. It's easier. Now once they feel like those odds are shrinking, their risk profile is going up, then maybe they might decide to throw a gun on or whatever. But most people just want to have it as the option. But right now, if you think about it, things are more, how should I say it? There's more crime out there than most people think. A lot more crime than most people think. But the odds are still, one or two in your life that you'll be, depending on where you are, obviously, in your life, the odds are still that you won't, that you die in front of your grandkids, you know what I'm saying, in a hospital somewhere, maybe. Now, and think about where you live. You live in Memphis, I trained federal guards in Memphis, and they can't shoot. Saying and I tell them, I said, guys, you live in Memphis, and they acknowledge it. Some of them, they've seen all kinds of crazy stuff, but again, people just, it's a lot easier to say, it's a lot easier with that thing. Well, it's not denial and defensive ego, William April, but it's that thing where you just, it's easier to say, nah, it won't happen to me, and then hope, and just hope and wish and that it won't. So if though it's frustrating, it took me a while, it's you gotta. It took me a while to get my head around the fact that what we do is a quantity thing and not a quality thing and not a quantity thing, So, but yeah, it's frustrating because you guys like you and I want everybody to be okay, but I had to get my head around the fact that it's a choice. And if I am about what I'm about, then I'm also, about the choice to not do it. The Second Amendment applies to people who don't believe in the Second Amendment. And then sometimes things happen where they change their mind. Like you and I were there in 2020. You know what I'm saying? When all of a sudden permit classes were full, and I had people waiting outside my door the morning of the class, hoping they could get a seat. But then when things get better, people feel like things are better. That's the important part. When they feel like things are better, then, learning to defend yourself takes skill. And so they get the gun just in case, and most of them feel like that's enough. And the way it is right now, for most of them, that is enough. They just play the odds and hope that nothing bad happens. And nothing does until it does. So. I mean, think about, I remember you telling us your story about, you were a Marine and, you took it serious once things started happening in the neighborhood, with your house and everything, and that's when all of a sudden those, you became a motivated student, and we are. For me, I was a police officer raised by a man who was a firearms instructor. It took the third time I had to pull a gun out off duty, after having had to shoot twice, for me to go, I need to get better. I need to go get training. So it didn't happen the first time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It didn't happen the second time. It happened after the third time when the gun came out, and I thought I was gonna have to use it again. And I was like, holy crap, I gotta get better. This is crazy, And so um, I think that's just human nature.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. Yeah. That makes a whole lot of sense. Like, come to think of it, it seems like it almost has to hit home. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like for instance, you had the Eliza Fletcher incident that happened here in Memphis,
right.
and you have like other stuff that happens, and it's like you have the mass shooter in the Collierville Kroger,
Hmm.
and it almost seems like there's this trigger event where I have to remember that this thing is mirrored. You have this trigger event, right, where people start thinking about it,
Right,
and then that's where it's really really close to home because
right,
some folks will be like, I live in Collierville, or some folks will be like, I look like Eliza Fletcher,
right.
and there's this space in between where like shortly after that event, that's where they're highly motivated.
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, after that, it just kind of dies off. If it falls out of short term memory, then it seems like, if it's out of sight, out of mind, so to speak,
Right.
so yeah, it's pretty interesting.
And then think what it takes to bring a gun into your life, Mikos. I mean, you're talking about the dangerous instrument, that people have seen on television, kids shooting. You got to lock the thing up. You got to make sure that they don't have access to it. There's a lot that kind of goes into it. And oftentimes people aren't quote unquote afraid enough yet, what I'm saying, or value it enough yet where they feel like they need to do that kind of work, to put that kind of work into it. So um yeah, and sometimes it takes, scary moments for people to all of a sudden prioritize it. But then after a while, what happens? Everybody, kind of settles down again and, you know, go back to grazing, I guess.
Yeah. And then it's back to business as usual.
Right.
So yeah, pretty interesting. So man, you have some really cool stuff for me to think about as far as, gateway instruction is concerned. And also there's really cool stuff to think about as far as, widening the 2A tent, so to speak, being able to reach people that may not necessarily be in your demographic category, so to speak. I don't know how to say it, you know. Um,
Also,
you could you could be a white gun owner trying to figure out, okay, like I don't think that any of these folks are purposely trying to separate themselves from minorities. They
right.
just don't know how to
Exactly.
speak to us.
Which is, if you think about it, is a remnant of our history, of segregation in places like that we don't know each other. And so that's changing, I mean, that's literally changing. And so as that happens, more and more people are, if you think about the mindset of a person nowadays compared to the mindset of a person in antebellum America, for example, as far as how they see us, how we see them, a lot of that stuff, we don't know each other, and I mean, I came up in Buffalo, which is always ranks in the top 5 of the most racially segregated cities in America. And we didn't really. The only time I knew him was in high school. When I went back to the hood, went back, I grew up in a pretty rough hood, and when I went back to where I lived, there wasn't I didn't see any white people at all. You know what I'm saying? And so I didn't have, I came up thinking, for example, that all white people had money. You know what I'm saying? That they were all rich or they all had everything. Maybe that was because the kids in my school. I don't know. I've come to find out later on as I made friends with these kids that these kids had the same problems I had, but I didn't know that, and because, like I said,
Yeah.
we weren't integrated like that. So as we
I felt that
integrated
way
more and
too.
more, right? As we integrate more and more as a society, we start to see that everybody's got those issues. We can relate more to people, and it's up to guys like you and I to play the ambassador role that we're playing. And people see you doing the things that they see you doing. There's people out there, and that's what why Marcus Ziegler stuff hit me so hard is because they realize that there's people watching us that you don't even think are watching you. So what you're doing now, this thing here, that this is why when you ask me, of course I got to do this, man, because this is part of that. This is one of your great contributions, one of many contributions you made to this thing. This is a part of it.
Man, thank you. Man, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Like this has been really, really cool. So you have a couple of courses out there that I'm personally very interested in, and I think that a lot of other people, like our listeners and our viewers, would be interested in as well. There's there's the Gateway Instructor Certification Program, and then there's also widening the 2A tent, which is basically like, are you doing those in person or is it just webinar format or what?
It's I think that's free on Citizen Safety Online. That's just a community service thing, and we often give that speech when we're asked to. For example, we gave it at TACCON a few times, and there's people who we give it. I think Tiff gave something similar at a Girl in the Gun conference, and it's just our thing. Our thing to the gun community, for people who, like you said, most of them want to be inclusive but don't know how, is to tell them to reach across the aisle, and to invite people. Don't just say, hey, well, I'm here and anybody can come shoot with me, and hang out with me, and they may not know that. So you have to sometimes, if you remember tactics, and just say, hey, all right, I might need to reach out here and bring more people in, to this thing. So if you reach out, and expect some of them to be skittish, because they don't know, and you're a good person. They don't know you're a good person, so that's so it sits there on the website as in a webinar. It's a webinar, not a webinar, but like a brief presentation on the website that people can see as a recording. But we do give that presentation in places when requested.
So widening the 2A tent, that's free. That's on your dude. I might watch that tonight.
Some of those things we do that and we also have, like, how to unload a firearm, how to clear a firearm, things like that, safety rules. In fact, I think I got to put a safety rules one on there, but those things we consider community service things. I'm saying that's something that I wouldn't feel right charging for me. I understood when you had an issue with charging for the stuff, because I have a problem with it too. It's just, I got to keep the lights on, so you got to do it to some extent, especially me at this point now when I'm not doing anything but this. So I actually have to charge for it. But there's things that that I would do. I mean, it's a calling for me, and I think you're in that boat. It's a calling for us. I teach in the parking lot for free. I would. I'd teach people how to defend themselves in the parking lot for absolutely nothing if I could still eat and do that. But some things I just don't feel right charging for, and that was one of them. So
yeah, I definitely 100% feel that. Man, tell you what. Let's see. How can people get a hold of you if they have questions or if they want to reach out to you? Like we have an email, right?
Email is best. info@citizensafety.com. Through the website contact form, that goes to me and Tiff. We both see that email, and we're happy to help in any way, because we just love doing this. So if anybody has any questions about anything that we can help with, we will do it, and if not, then we'll push you on the people who we think can. Because like I said, one of the biggest things, is from the Gateway thing that we do is no ego. There's no ego in this for us, none whatsoever. So we do the best we can. The only thing that stops us is time, not having enough time and not having enough resources. But anything that we can do to help people, we will.
Absolutely. And I know you guys are on Facebook. Any other socials like Instagram or?
I'm terrible with them. It's funny. This past weekend, I was AIing Tom for a combative pistol. So we were talking during the break, and we were like, I don't know how. I guess you have to hire. I don't have enough money to hire a consultant or somebody just come to my events, and and I know there's people who do it and do it quite well. I think maybe I'm just too old, or it's hard for me to just talk about myself all the time, and go, hey, this is what I'm doing today. This is what I'm doing today. I know it's good business. I mean, it's funny because right before he passed, RIP to the late James Yeager, he came and brought his cadre to us to teach, and we had a wonderful time with him. I consider him an OG in the game, and as we sat there and we was talking, he was talking about social media, and I was saying how, I said, I'm pretty bad at it. And he was like, So I don't like using it. He said, you don't like money. in his own way, you know how he is, you know what I'm saying? But, so we do a little Facebook, you know, I got an Instagram page, but I'm gonna try to I've been trying to con Monique Clark into helping me with my Instagram page so that we can get some stuff on there. You know, I do a little Facebook. It's funny when I talk to my kids about it, you know, especially the young ones, they're like, you know, all old people on Facebook, you know, and they're right. Yeah, you know, they're right.
I
so,
mean, where's the lie?
Yeah, I don't know. They might be on TikTok now. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? If I was talking to somebody the other day, said, man, you got to get on TikTok. I'm like, you know, like I said, hopefully I'll be able to sell enough classes that I can hire a consultant, somebody to do it for me. But if that doesn't happen, the chances, you know. So we're on Facebook. We do have a Twitter. I don't use it. We do have an Instagram, and I occasionally throw stuff up there when I remember, but it's spotty. So
okay. So Facebook, email. I'm gonna put that up on the also particularly the website. I'm gonna put that in the description for the podcast and the YouTube videos. That way people can get a hold of you.
Okay.
Man, this was a wonderful night. Thanks a bunch for coming on tonight, man.
Man, it's my pleasure, brother. I couldn't do no less. We go back now, man. And you know, I remember when you came to our class, man, and you've always supported us, been a big supporter of us, man. And I'm really happy, really happy about what's going on down there at TopGunMemphis, man. You know, with Will and you guys. It's so nice to be able to say to guys who are in Memphis, just walk into Top Gun and ask for one of these dudes, and they're going to know that they're going to get the good stuff and they're going to get it right. And they won't be treated improperly and things like that. And so it's just nice to know these guys. Also nice that he, create another place for the old mothership crew to hang out, man, so that those guys got a place to get in there and share their knowledge. So it's wonderful what they're doing down there, man. And like I said, if it wasn't in Memphis, man, I might even move closer.
Live in the suburbs, you know.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we got to go to Memphis, man. Memphis is wow. It's a different planet there, man.
It's wild. Yeah, it's wild. But yeah, man, thanks for coming on. Folks, if you're listening or if you're watching, I just want to thank you for spending your time with us. You could have spent your time doing anything with anyone, anywhere, and you're spending it with us, watching us, and part of this discussion. And I just want to let you know how much I appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Folks, thanks for watching. Welcome to Memphis.